The Florida Gators are headed to the Sweet 16 to face the Maryland Terrapins on Thursday.
Our favorite frauds are going to the Sweet 16 after dominating Iowa State.
A lot happened last Friday with Aaron Rodgers visiting the Steelers.
Oh my God, the Nuggets won a game without Jokic. It's a miracle. It couldn't have ever. Oh wait, they've done it twice in a week.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Derik Queen wins it for the Terps.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps.
Derik Queen wins it for the Maryland Terrapins on a buzzer beater against Colorado State. I know you guys all just got a chance to watch the game. I've obviously just finished watching it like you guys. But first of all, what a game. The Terps showed perseverance. The Terps showed a lot of stuff that I didn't know Maryland could show in that second half. And we found a way to win. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It didn't look great for a little bit there. It didn't look awesome for a while. That timeout that Maryland took to get a chance to have a last-second shot felt like forever. I was just sitting there like, dang, we lost to a team we were absolutely better than, a team that we should have beaten, and all those different thoughts were going in my head as Maryland got a chance to be able to win the game. And I wasn't sure what they were going to drew up. I wasn't sure what Kevin Willard was going to do. I thought in my head, I was like, it might have to go to one of the guards because the basketball might be too far away from the hoops to allow for the Terps to be able to get a shot off for either Queen or Reese. But I thought Kevin Willard did a really good job of drawing up a play. Not even really a play, just give your best guy the ball and say, go win the game. I thought Colorado State may have made a mistake by not at least trying to double. Like they probably could have helped a little bit more off of Rodney Rice in the corner. But let me tell you, Derik Queen hitting that shot solidifies his legacy as a Terp. And even if Maryland loses next round, I don't really want to talk about next round too much, but whatever happens next round, if you hit a shot like that to send the Terps to a Sweet 16 after a struggling type of game where it's a fader, and I'm watching the game with my friends and we were talking about it, and it was like, I don't know how he got that shot to go off the glass like that. It just didn't seem like he had the angle, didn't seem like he was going to be able to hit it. But sometimes special players make special plays, and that's exactly what Derik Queen did. But I thought Kevin Willard, don't overcomplicate it. Let's not try and draw something weird up. Let's not try and do something fancy. Let's just give it to our best player. And that's what I love to do at the end of games. You let your best player take that last shot. And Derik Queen had been our best player in that game, and he's been our best player all season. And the Big Ten Freshman of the Year showed why he's the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. And honestly, so impressed with that kid being able to hit that shot. And that's by far the moment of the season. I think everybody would agree and say that that's the moment of the season. Those don't come very often. Those don't happen that much. You don't get too many moments like that in March Madness, and those different things to be able to hit shots like that. It was really impressive for Derik Queen and the Terps to be able to pull that off and be able to win that game. Really awesome for Maryland basketball. But we advance. Survive in advance. It's the dance. And to be honest, Maryland got the juices flowing for the tournament. It feels like the tournament has been boring, I don't want to say, but a lot of outsider perspectives have kind of been like, this has been one of the drier tournaments. There's not a ton of upsets, not a ton of late game type of stuff. But this was the first one where it's like, that's a huge game. And I'm glad Maryland was in it. I'm glad Maryland was able to have us be on the good side of it. And I know what I was saying during the game was, dang, another loss where we lose on the buzzer beater. I was like, is that fifth loss? 5 straight losses on a buzzer beater, or on a game-winning shot like that? I guess that wouldn't be considered a buzzer beater with the 3 that they made. So I guess it wouldn't fall in that category, but it felt pretty close to that kind of being a last-second shot for Colorado State. When the guy hit that 3, I was like, dang, it is going to be tough to be able to do it. And what did I say early on? I said a couple of keys Maryland basketball is going to have early on going into March, and pretty much they all, 2 of the 3 that I talked about came out. I said, 1, you're going to have to be better late in games. There's going to be a game, if you want to, I said, if Maryland wants to make a Final Four run, which they are very capable of doing, and I think they're still very capable of doing. You have a really tough Florida team next, but I said, if you want to be able to do that, you got to be able to figure out some of this late game stuff. And I think, I don't want to say we figured it out. We got a lot of ways to go, and Queen hitting a shot doesn't mean we figured out how to win late. But still, it's definitely a good sign of having to improve. And you got to get a little lucky. You got to be able to win games late. And that's what Maryland did. They were down big for a lot of, not big, but we were down for a lot of the game, it felt like, and we got back in it. We took a lead at the point, but Colorado State came back with a little run, and under 3 minutes, Maryland had to really claw their way to win that game. Had a 9-0 run late, and I said, you got to figure out how to win games late, and that Maryland team kind of felt like a reverse of what we've been all season when we've taken losses. We've been a team that kind of played like Colorado State, played a good game the entire time, played a really solid game plan, but ended up just not getting it done, not executing down the stretch. But instead it was the opposite for Maryland. I said that's one of the keys. You're going to have to figure out how to win games late in March. We know there's crazy moments. We know weird stuff happens. We know we're supposed to win that game by what? Was the spread 8.5 or 7.5? But that's not how it's going to go. It's never going to be that easy. So you know stuff is going to be weird. You got to figure out a way to win games late. And sometimes that's really tough to do. But that was my next point was I said, Derik Queen is the key for Maryland basketball this tournament. I almost said this exactly. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys can go back and watch the video. I kind of want to pull up the clip. I was talking about Derik Queen being the key for Maryland basketball. I think it was my first segment, so it should be one of the titles of the recent videos. I said, to making a late run, Derik Queen is definitely the key for Maryland basketball. Obviously, we have a balanced lineup. Obviously, we have a lot of guys that are going to do things well. But eventually, you're going to need a guy to either get you 25 points to get you to the next round, which we might need next time we play against Florida in the Sweet 16, or you're going to need a guy that hits a shot late in the game that he's not really supposed to make. And that was a shot Derik Queen wasn't really supposed to make. Also our leading scorer on the day. So I've been saying that he's the key to this whole thing. You're going to need a guy that can hit a shot late, a guy that can have a special play. And to me, that was always going to be Derik Queen. I love the other guys on our team, but that's kind of the star. That's kind of the brand right now. When people think of Maryland basketball that aren't like your hardcore Maryland basketball fans or hardcore college basketball fans, no offense to the rest of the guys, they're not thinking of Jacoby Gillespie. They're not thinking of Rodney Rice or Celton McGill. They think Derik Queen right now, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, we know that those other guys are really good players, but there's a reason that they think Derik Queen when it comes to this thing, because he's a special type of player. And March Madness, to me, is about special players making special plays. No matter what team you're on, no matter what seed you have, it doesn't matter. If you're a guy that can step up in a big moment and make a special play, then you're going to be able to do that. So I thought that was really cool to be able to see Maryland's Derik Queen make a play late for Maryland basketball after really being on the wrong side of these buzzer beaters for a while now. So it was really nice to be able to see it for Maryland. And you advanced to the Sweet 16. And I said it, in order for it to be a successful tournament for Maryland basketball, they had to get to at least the Sweet 16. And we're here now, and we're going to play a really freaking good Florida team. I watched them. They're beatable, though. I watched them play UConn. That Florida team is beatable. I think they're really good, but they're beatable. But I think, obviously, I don't want this thing to end. But to me, it's been a pretty good tournament. I know it was a tough win against Colorado State, but we're at the part of the season, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Doesn't matter how it goes. We're at the part of the season where if you win, we don't care. Just keep going, keep playing. If you're going to win the game, however you're going to win the game, doesn't matter to me. doesn't matter to most people. Just figure out a way to win games. Like early on in the season, if we beat like Bucknell by only 8 points, let's say, we would look back and be like, we don't look that great. That's the thing of the past. Don't really matter anymore. But honestly, such a cool win for Maryland basketball. And I got to say, credit to Colorado State, man. I thought Maryland was the better team for sure, but Colorado State put up a really good effort. They had some really good players, and they outplayed us. They did with the talent that they had compared to the talent that we had. They outplayed us, and I think that's fair to say. They had the better game plan. They had the better overall kind of game, but Maryland just had a better player, and they had the best player. I thought Maryland arguably could have had the best player on the court today. You could say the Clifford kid for Colorado State, but just for Derik Queen to hit that shot late, just the importance of that shot was just really big for Maryland basketball. And he literally saved the season. Doesn't make it, our season's done. I'm sitting over here talking about an upset, and now it's really awesome for me because I get another week to talk about Maryland basketball and what I think Maryland basketball can another game with Florida and how we can do that. And so I'm excited for that. But what a win for Maryland basketball and Derik Queen. Game winner. Really awesome.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can check out some NBA lines like the battle in Brooklyn tonight. The Nets and the Mavericks face off. Okay, not the best game, but come on, it's sports. According to FanDuel, Dallas 1-point road favorite in this one. No Luka, no Kyrie. But yeah, yikes. FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
The Florida Gators are headed to the Sweet 16 to face the Maryland Terrapins on Thursday.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators.
The Florida Gators are headed to the Sweet 16 to face Maryland, and we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about the UConn game and some things that Florida can or can't fix. And look, this game against UConn, I get it. You won. I'm happy for the victory. But when we're talking about having championship aspirations, games like that is what ends your season, or what end your season. Games like that are what end your season. Getting out-hustled in every way. Making just crazy decisions, like the Walter Clayton Jr. behind-the-head pass that he did multiple times, and it worked sometimes, and then 2 times he turned it over on it, and, well, that's one time too many on a tricky pass to turn it over. It's like, all right, you did it once there, it didn't work. Let's just cut it. Of course, incredible clutch moments, incredible clutch shooting by Walter Clayton Jr. It was just one hell of a game. Took years off my life. We talked about this yesterday in the live show. I was like, it took years off my life. Like that game was incredible. UConn played a fantastic game, and I think there's a couple misconceptions here when we talk about UConn. Florida was a much better team than UConn, right? UConn is still a good team. Florida's a much better team than UConn. Also, this is not the same UConn from last year. I understand they're back-to-back champs, but not really. This is a different team. They're different players. This is not the same UConn. This is an 8-seed UConn. This is not last year when everybody knew, hey, UConn's probably the best team in the country. This year, UConn was an 8-seed. UConn was unranked going into the tournament. That's what we're talking about. And that team just took you to the wire. I mean, yes, you only won by 2 points, but really, I'll be fair and I'll say, hey, you really won by 5, sure. Sorry if you had Florida minus 2.5. That was a bad beat. But yeah, Florida just that was a rough game, right? Offense looked lethargic for most of the game, really. And defense also just they had a ton of their switches, and sometimes it worked, but oftentimes Florida just seemed like they were really out of it. We'll talk a little bit more about the switches later on, but I did want to talk about Elijah Martin a little bit, because last week when we were starting true tournament coverage once Selection Sunday had passed, I said that Elijah Martin was my X factor. I had said that, hey, Elijah Martin's the guy that I look at, and I say, well, he's got Final Four experience, the best perimeter defender on the team, arguably the best just defender on the team, provides a pretty consistent scoring output, and makes some game-changing plays, right? Transitional plays. So he was my X factor, and boy, was he. I mean, you lose that game if he doesn't play as lights out as he did in the first half. Second half slowed down, but that's also because, guess what? The rest of the team actually showed up in the second half after that. So when I look at Florida against UConn, I look at a team that Florida was outplayed. Florida was out hustled. Florida was out everything except outshot, which, again, gets you the result that you want in the sense that you win the game. So it gets you what you want to get to. It gets you where you want to go. It gets you all of that. However, I am a process-oriented person. Todd Golden is also a process-oriented person, and I would imagine that he's not going to be super thrilled with the performance for a lot of the game. Because, again, if UConn didn't have, by the way, an uncharacteristically poor shooting day, but UConn had an uncharacteristically poor shooting day. If they shot even their averages, they win that game. Okay? There were quite a few UConn players who shot worse than usual, especially from three. And look, UConn had a fantastic game plan. I don't think that every team has the roster capable of executing that game plan, but I do think that the teams that are really good defensively, I do think that they're going to say, hey, this is going to be our approach, right? We're going to play physical with them. We're going to press up on their threes. We're going to just try to stick the ball handlers. And then on offense, we're going to, hey, a lot of motion, a lot of screens, causing a lot of switches, and then we'll attack our mismatches. And what they can do, what UConn did, what many teams have done before, and what we've talked about for a long time on this show, is Florida will switch, and they're content with their switches, and that's fine. But sometimes the switch really, really, really puts them in a rough spot where it could take, Alex Condon to the top of the key, and then there's no one down there to rebound. That was a brutal game in terms of actually boxing out and getting to the ball. I was very frustrated at certain points. I know that there was one stretch where Will Richard just drove me nuts. Specifically the play where he's driving by the baseline, went up, thought he got fouled. Ball got hit out, ball hit him, and then ball went out of bounds. And he was foul baiting, right? He got touched, and he was like, oh, God, oh, what happened? And he did all that, and the ball ended up being out on him, so it was UConn's ball. Tight game where every possession mattered, every possession counted, and stuff like that just drives me nuts. And I don't care about if UConn scored or not after. I don't care if Florida got the ball back, forced a turnover, got the ball back, and scored right after. I don't care about any of that. Because, again, I'm talking about just in terms of, did you play well? The answer is, for a large portion of the game, no. No other way to put it. They turned the ball over so many times. They had one point, it was 5 turnovers in the first 5 minutes. And yeah, they ended with 12, which when you look at that translating over, that's all right, 35 minutes of 7 turnover basketball. That's great. Sure, I'll give you that. I'm not going to fight you on that. I'll give you that. But this was a game, and this was a team where Florida did not play like a national championship team. Again, I think that maybe that's a good thing in the sense of hopefully that'll be the wake-up call, right? Hopefully this game will be the wake-up call that the Florida Gators may have really needed and will hopefully be able to avoid for the rest of March Madness, however deep they may go. Again, they're going to the Sweet 16. They're playing this Thursday against Maryland, which won another crazy game there. But this is a game where Florida has to show up, and Maryland is the team that's capable of getting physical with you and battling you that way. I said yesterday, Colorado State was the team where I look at it and I say, well, I think Maryland's the better team. And I think that Florida is a better mismatch for Colorado than they are for Maryland. Or for Colorado State than they are for Maryland. So I was hoping to see that, but that's not what we got.
Our favorite frauds are going to the Sweet 16 after dominating Iowa State.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels.
Listen, this was a massive game for the Ole Miss Rebels. Rarely have I seen Ole Miss basketball put it all together like they did in this game, especially from the outside. Like I said, we're going to do some box score cleaning in the second half of this show, but it was imperative they shot well. They played defense well. They turned Iowa State over. They did not get mauled on the boards after absolutely getting mauled the first 5 minutes. After Iowa State had 10 rebounds or so in the first 5 minutes of the game, Ole Miss pretty much played them even the rest of the way. And when Ole Miss rebounds at the same level as you do not beat Ole Miss. Period. You cannot beat this Ole Miss basketball team unless you maul them on the boards. That is the recipe for beating this team. Look at what Mississippi State did. Look at how Texas A&M was able to come back in that game. Whenever Ole Miss lost games, they lost games in the front court, and Iowa State had a really good front court. This is one of the reasons I am so excited about this game and what happened. Iowa State had a good front court. They are a team that should have taken advantage of this Ole Miss roster. We had a crossover with Nick Marvetts from Locked On Cyclones. And I told him, I said, hey, this Iowa State team reminds me a lot of the Tennessee Volunteers. And I think we are going to see something similar to what Ole Miss did to Tennessee to Iowa State. Now, he told me he wasn't worried about it at all, and that's fine. It is absolutely okay to have confidence in your team. I'm not mad at Nick, and it's not like he pulled a Tim Doyle and called Ole Miss frauds. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's a situation to where Ole Miss going up against a very, very good front court where they were massively outsized in this game and held their own to the point where they only got out-rebounded by the end of the game by about a factor of 4. Iowa State didn't shoot the ball particularly well in the first half. Ole Miss got another big lead, extended that lead in the second half. There was a little bit of a comeback to where Iowa State, I think, cut it down to 10 points with about a minute to go. Ole Miss pushed that out and won the game relatively easy. This was a destruction. The last time that Ole Miss went to the Sweet 16, it needed a shot by Jason Harrison at the very end of the game, inside of a minute, to secure that win over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I remember that game. I snuck into my office in the Navy when I was there. We had a TV, like one of the old tube TVs that you would wheel into classrooms that were sitting in there. And since I lived on base, I knew that TV was there. And I wanted to watch the Ole Miss Notre Dame game and all those tournament games on that big TV with nobody to bother me and nothing going on. It was basically the whole office to myself. And I sat there and watched all of those games, all the way until the heartbreak in the Sweet 16 against Arizona. But this game gave me the excitement that I had going into that game. Listen, we had a video this week that got over 7,000 YouTube views about basketball. As the Ole Miss fan base, give yourself a round of applause. That doesn't happen. That is because of the excitement level that Keith Carter and Chris Beard and Coach Yo have brought to the Ole Miss fan base. Keith Carter is absolutely the man in the state of Mississippi athletics-wise right now. The man. Whatever Keith Carter wants, give it to him, because whatever the coaches want, Keith Carter's giving it to them. We need to pay it forward to Keith Carter because he is going to be a hot topic of people looking for athletic directors coming up. Both teams in the Sweet 16, both of them. All right, let's do a little box score cleaning up before we get to your comments, because honestly, we should spend about the last 15 minutes of this show celebrating what was the biggest basketball day in Ole Miss basketball history. I mean, there's just no other way. Other people like Blue Bloods, Kentucky and North Carolina are probably laughing at this. Ole Miss fans are having a really, really good day. So box score wise, Ole Miss beat Iowa State 91-78. And look at these shooting percentages. It's absolutely insane. Ole Miss shot 58.2% from the field, 11 of 19 from three-point range, only turned the ball over 8 times. The rebounding battle, they kept it close at 29. Did have 21 fouls on the day, but that was okay because Iowa State was not hitting free throws. It felt like that was strategic. Iowa State didn't shoot poorly, 48.2%, but they shot terrible in the first half. And a lot of their shots that were being made were at the end of the game that kind of got that shooting percentage up. They were 8 of 22 from three-point range. Again, a lot of that was at the end of the game. 15 turnovers, 34 rebounds, 19 fouls. Ole Miss was paced by Sean Padula, had 20 points, 3 of 8 on three-point. He was 5 of 6 from the line, 6 of 13 overall, had 2 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 steals in the game. Basically a locked-on Ole Miss player of the game level performance. Second on the list was Jamin Brakefield, 6 of 8 shooting, 2 for 2 from 3, 5 for 5 from the line, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. He did turn the ball over 3 times, but we forgive him for that. 19 points. Next up is Malik Dia, who had 18 points. Listen, these are awesome double-digit numbers. Had 8 rebounds, 2 steals himself. Only had 1 turnover, 2 of 2 from three-point range, and he was important, stunning the momentum for Iowa State in this game. Iowa State got in that early little spurt where they were up like 13-8. It was Malik Dia that started that 19-2 run that kind of allowed Ole Miss to take over the game. So Malik Dia had a big role in that. Matthew Morrell played really well, 3 for 3 from three-point range. And when he's shooting the ball well, it's lights out. It's Katie bar the door. Dre Davis did not play particularly well this game. Offensively, only had 4 points, ended up fouling out. But he was active on the defensive end, had 2 assists as well. And he also had 5 rebounds on the game. Eduardo Clafty, Davin Barnes played as well. Ole Miss played 8 players in this game and made it all the way through, and now they have advanced to face the Michigan State Spartans. We're going to try and hook up with the Locked On Michigan State person to have a crossover about Wednesday. Tonight, we are going to have Tim Thomas on, so tune in for that, and he'll talk about what he's seeing about the game, as we are expectedly all March Madness all the time right now on the channel. And this is really cool. Right before my surgery, I do want to say thank you to Chris Beard, the basketball team, for making this very good, because I'm so busy right now, I don't even have time to think about what is going on. Again, Ole Miss a 91-78 win in this game. We're going to go to the chat and talk, as we're going to take about 20 minutes to celebrate, because this was the biggest day in Ole Miss basketball history. And it's not over on either account. The men's go to the Sweet 16 to face the Michigan State Spartans in Atlanta. And then you have Ole Miss taking on UCLA. I think that is that in Spokane or Seattle? It's somewhere in the Northwest. But that is a big game for them as well.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. You can check out some NBA lines like the battle in Brooklyn tonight. The Nets and the Mavericks face off. Okay, not the best game, but come on, it's sports. According to FanDuel, Dallas 1-point road favorite in this one. No Luka, no Kyrie. But yeah, yikes. FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast.
Well, here we are, folks. The Giants agreed to terms, or about to sign, rather, Jameis Winston, all right, to a 2-year deal worth a reported $8 million with incentives built in that can reach as high as $16 million. So what we're going to do on this special podcast, this emergency podcast, we're going to talk about Winston. We're going to talk about what he brings. We'll talk about the contract. And then we will discuss whether the Giants are done with the quarterback position. Will they add another veteran? How is this going to affect the draft? So all of this is going to be about the quarterback. So again, welcome on in. Let's get into it because we have a lot of ground to cover. All right. Jameis Winston, 2 years, $8 million, up to $16 million with incentives. Now, I have not seen the terms of the deal, or the breakdown, I should say. I am willing, however, to, if I were a betting woman, which I'm not, but if I were, I am willing to bet that his contract is very similar to the one that Tyrod Taylor signed a couple of years ago. All right. Now, Tyrod Taylor's contract, for those of you who don't remember, it had a base salary, but Taylor could earn additional revenue if he was a starter. So if he took a certain number of snaps, if he played a certain, completed a certain percentage. I don't remember the specifics, but there were different incentives and escalators in his deal that paid him differently if he was a starter. All right. So when I look at Jameis Winston's contract, the basis, 2 years, $8 million, that comes to $4 million APY. You just don't find a starting quarterback at that rate. That's not starter's money. That is backup money. And again, I think because the deal can double to, $8 million per year, if Winston were to hit all the incentives, you're looking probably at one that has a plan in there where maybe Winston won't be the starter on day one. So, we can call him a bridge quarterback because in a way he's a guy who can come in, obviously, and I think he would be a wonderful mentor to a potential first-round pick if the Giants decide to go that route. And I say that because Jameis Winston, as y'all know, was a first-round pick many years ago. I think it was 2013. The Bucs drafted him. Jameis Winston has since kind of been relegated to a backup role. So he's a good source, I think, to sit and work with a potential rookie coming in and kind of guide that rookie so as to not make the same mistakes that maybe Winston made along his career. So, I actually like this move. I really do. I think Winston, would be a good mentor. I'm aware of the turnover issue, but I'm also aware that Jameis Winston is not afraid to sling the rock down the field. In fact, I think 2 of the receivers had their best years. I know Jerry Jeudy was one of them with the Cleveland Browns, and I think it was Cedric Tillman was the other. They had their best years with Winston throwing them the football in Cleveland. So I don't hate this move at all. I think this is a solid move. Is it a little surprising considering that the Giants were so gung-ho on, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but what I think happened here, Friday, there was a report that Aaron Rodgers went to visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what was so interesting about that report is that Omar Khan, who's the GM for Pittsburgh, and Mike Tomlin, the head coach, according to our Pittsburgh contacts, they usually are out on the road going to all the pro days together, that they came back to meet with Rodgers, who had this introductory to the people in the Steelers building, to the coaches. That was a sign that maybe they are getting a little closer, I should say, to a deal. So with that said, I believe it was Tom Pelissero that came out with the report, but Rodgers apparently has had the parameters of a contract in place now with the Steelers for a few weeks. So they are getting close, it sounds like, to a deal. And quite honestly, folks, I didn't think Rodgers was coming here. I know that, there was some interest on both sides, but I always thought that if of the two of Rodgers and Russell Wilson, I thought Wilson would be the more likely to come here. Now, speaking of Russell Wilson, what does this mean for him? Is he out of the picture? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before I do, just going back to Winston, now the Giants, like I said, they have a second quarterback in the room. Tommy DeVito was in the room as well. So they're going in the right direction. I know there's some mixed feelings about Winston being, having been brought in. I really don't think this is a bad move. As far as the interceptions and the errant throws, you would hope that maybe Brian Dable within the system can coach that out of him. I realize that, it's asking a lot. And also, we don't know who the play caller is going to be for the Giants. Don't forget, is it Mike Kafka? Because remember, when Mike Kafka called the plays for Daniel Jones back in 2022, Daniel Jones had his lowest interception rate. So maybe they flip back to Kafka calling the plays this year if Winston ends up being the starter. And I say that's a big if because we don't know if that's indeed what it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be right now. Now let's talk about this whole idea if the Giants are done or what exactly is the next step for the Giants in the quarterback situation. As I mentioned in the previous section, Jameis Winston signed for what basically backup money. So one of two things could potentially happen here. And I think we can't rule out the most likely one here. And that is the Giants could potentially add still Russell Wilson. All right. Aaron Rodgers, like I said before, is not coming here. Russell Wilson could potentially come here. Now, hear me out on this. I know this is like double dipping, but hear me out on this, if you will. Russell Wilson and the Giants, I think a big reason why the two of them haven't, come together on a contract is money. I don't know what Russell Wilson is looking for per APY. I don't know what the Giants offered Russell Wilson APY, but usually when the two sides don't get together on a contract, because it does take two to make a contract, it's usually there is a gap in terms of what party A thinks he's worth and what party B thinks he's worth. So money is clearly the issue here. So now what I am wondering, and this might be a long shot, but look, we've got to consider this as a possibility. What I am wondering is the signing of Jameis Winston maybe a way to kind of nudge Russell Wilson to say, hey, look, we're offering you X, you want Y. Let's try and come together and meet in the middle someplace. It's possible because look, if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh as is expected, the Giants have Winston. Could Winston start for them? Absolutely. Would they maybe want to have Wilson as their starter? I think they would. All right. So this could be a way to kind of nudge Wilson to say, hey, listen, if you want us, we're here, but you got to come down and meet us. You can't be asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars. You've got to meet us closer to what our price is. So that is very much still a possibility. Now, if Wilson, who also drew interest from Cleveland, ends up going to Cleveland, then there's another ripple effect, which I'll talk about in the next segment, which has to do with the draft. All right. So there's kind of like a bunch of dominoes here, if you will, as to how this could all potentially play out. But that being said, the Giants in getting Winston, they protect themselves because look, there had been reports that Joe Shane was willing to wait out Aaron Rodgers. That he was willing to give him his space. Take your time, Aaron. Make up your mind. We're not going anywhere. We've got this offer for you. Whenever you decide, we're here. We'll leave the light on for you. Well, again, because of what happened with the Steelers, that is no longer the case. Doesn't look like Rodgers is coming here. And quite honestly, I wasn't too sure Rodgers would be a good fit in the Giants ecosystem, if you will. For Rodgers' purposes, the Steelers, a little older roster, a little bit more experienced roster, and a playoff roster. Giants aren't there yet. And if players, they always tell you, oh, I want to go someplace where I can win. Rodgers probably wasn't going to win playoff games here. So, given where the Giants are in their rebuild. So you've got Winston coming in, who, if you go back to the Super Bowl, remember there was a report that Winston said, hey, yeah, I would go play for the Giants if they asked me to. So here he is. Giants got him for a basically backup money. All right. Again, no. The Giants, depending on what they do next, if Russell Wilson suddenly says, oh my gosh, I better, rethink what I'm asking, it is possible. It is possible that Russell Wilson signs with the Giants to be their starter. Winston now becomes the backup. And then as for Tommy DeVito, well, that all depends on what happens in the draft. Right? So you see how the different roads can possibly develop. I personally think that the Giants are probably going to go with Winston, and they might be looking at the draft for their next quarterback. But I'm going to get into that in just a little bit more. So it's an interesting scenario. We probably will not hear from the Giants or Winston more specifically until, my guess would be Monday is probably when we will hear from Winston regarding, the details, where this came to, what he was told as far as what his role is going to be. But Winston, I've got to confess, I like the deal. I like the money. I like what he brings to the table. I know, I don't like the turnovers, but look, at least this is a guy who's going to try and air it out and give these receivers an opportunity to do their thing.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can check out some NBA lines like the battle in Brooklyn tonight. The Nets and the Mavericks face off. Okay, not the best game, but come on, it's sports. According to FanDuel, Dallas 1-point road favorite in this one. No Luka, no Kyrie. But yeah, yikes. FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
A lot happened last Friday with Aaron Rodgers visiting the Steelers.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
We got to talk about what went down last Friday, because I recorded that episode late Thursday going into Friday. Actually, it's a little bit technically on Friday morning, and put that out Friday morning. But then shortly after that, like in the late morning hours of Friday, Jerry Dulac, my colleague at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, broke the news to the world that Aaron Rodgers was actually at the Steelers facility last Friday. And it seemed to many at first that this could have been the final straw, with him signing the deal with the Steelers, ending the saga and ending the question of where he's going to be in free agency. But then shortly after that gets out, we saw a lot of reports come in that that wouldn't be the case, and that he, in fact, this was more of a precursory visit with the team. Rodgers came, met with the Steelers brass for about 6 hours, then left with no deal. So you're probably sitting here wondering, well, wait, did that mean anything? What was the point of all this? Well, there could be many takeaways, but I'll give you mine. I think the biggest thing that I see here is that the Steelers, despite how people say, oh, they're desperate, they really want Aaron Rodgers. If they were desperate to sign Aaron Rodgers and he's flirting supposedly with the Giants and the Vikings might still be in play, he would have left Pittsburgh with a deal. They would not have let him walk out the door unless they were like, yeah, unless they were sitting there saying like, hey, Aaron, we absolutely need you. But I don't think that's what happened there. Because Rodgers would have been signed to a contract, they would have ended this whole thing, and we would now know that Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers quarterback, and he still might be. I'm not saying that he's not going to be. They definitely want him, which is why they're entertaining all this, and they have a price that they've set out for him. But if they were willing to pay him what I think he thinks that he wants for himself, he would have signed this contract by now. And unless he just really loves attention and that's what this is all about, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though there's a lot of history to show that he kind of is about that. But I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just the Steelers haven't given him the number that he really wants in a contract. So now Rodgers is still being considered officially by the Giants, though there were reports saying that maybe that's lessening and more as time goes on. They signed Jameis Winston. There's also reports that he's actually not out of the running with the Minnesota Vikings just yet either. There were some reports saying that and national insiders saying that the Vikings have indicated they're not going gun-ho for Aaron Rodgers, but they're not giving up on JJ McCarthy. But then there were some people that said, they're not exactly out on Aaron Rodgers either. So who knows where things actually go there. There's a lot of national insiders who still think Rodgers is going to end up with the Steelers in the long run. And to me, that makes sense for Aaron Rodgers. Like if I'm Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings don't want me, I'm 41. I'm trying to live out my best last year, maybe two at best, if it's going to be anything, whatever it is. Why would you be on a team that's not going to give you a competitive chance? When he joined the Jets were an up-and-coming team that looked like they were a quarterback away from being a real contender in the NFL. Now he's going, if he joins the Giants, it's going to be an even worse situation than that because they have so much rebuilding to do. Now, the Vikings would make sense. He'd have Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. He'd have a good offensive line. He'd have playmakers. He'd have a defense. Like that would make a lot of sense. The Vikings looked like they were a QB away last year as well. But if he chose the Steelers, they're not what the Vikings were last year, but they are a playoff team. And again, they've been they can consistently get to the playoffs. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're looking for a fit, the Steelers actually would make a lot of sense there. So that's why I think there's a lot of links to that. The Steelers obviously want Aaron Rodgers, but want him at a certain price. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, is entertaining this because he thinks that the Steelers might be one of his best options, might be the best option right now. But I think Aaron Rodgers is also trying to get somebody to come up and actually pay him what he thinks he's worth. Now, I don't know if that's the $45 million a year deal that Mike Florio put out there that supposedly, Aaron Rodgers' agent told him or whatever. But to me, when I hear that number, I think that's not anything near where the Steelers are offering him. I think the Steelers have a number. They're like, hey, Aaron, this is the facility. This is what you'll be able to work with. You're going to have these receivers. You're going to have this tight end. We're developing a line. This is what's it's going to be. But this is the number, and it's not moving. And if you don't take it, that is what it is. Personally, I think that the Steelers shouldn't be bothering with Rodgers. That's just my personal opinion. I've been saying it for a while. You look at how Rodgers handled things with the Jets. He didn't show up for OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and there were questions. There was all sorts of drama. He was supposed to be a leader. He didn't look like a leader early on. It caused drama within the team. And even if he does promise Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney that he's going to do that when he sits down with them and signs this contract, unless it's written into the contract that he has to do these things, how can they trust that he's going to do that, considering what he's done in the past? And another thing that we understand that Arthur Smith had a problem with Russell Wilson about was he had a problem with Russell Wilson adjusting plays and calling audibles and calling hot routes that weren't designed and things, and doing things that he didn't like. How is he going to react when Aaron Rodgers just does whatever he wants? Because that's what he's always done. You look at Aaron Rodgers in his history, he got the Jets to sign all sorts of receivers that he wanted. You think he's not going to try to just change your plays? He probably won't get the same run of the Steelers organization. Like they're probably not going to be signing Alan Lazard or whoever's, to big contracts that hold them back a whole lot. But I could see him, like, who's to stop him on the play? Okay, hey, you know what, Calvin Austin, run the streak here. I think I see something here, and Arthur Smith is going to lose it. So for the very thing that they're saying they don't want Russell Wilson for, I think Aaron Rodgers does that tenfold. So there's that. Rodgers is known for wanting those things. It's hard to see that working for the Steelers with what they're trying to do right now. And I truly believe that, again, I think at the end of the day, the Steelers are still just biding their time because their next big move is going to be the 2026 NFL draft when they trade up and go get a quarterback in what is, I think, what I anticipate to be a much better quarterback class than there is this year. But the bottom line for the Steelers and the potential of them getting Aaron Rodgers, at least in my book and what I'm looking at, is that this is a situation where the Steelers are not going to be destroyed and bummed out if he doesn't pick them, which is why they're not jumping. They have their offer in. It's this offer. I'm going to estimate 20 to 25 million. I don't know. When I said 15 million about Justin Fields, people thought I was crazy. Turned out that was the number that they offered him. So, but I was saying, like, they're probably keeping the number down. just to bring in Aaron Rodgers. They probably want, hey, 1 year of this could work. Let's just see what happens. It's a veteran who comes in. Maybe some things can click. Maybe there could be something there on the offense. That I can see where their vision is there. The question will be, does Aaron Rodgers want to go with that? And if he doesn't, where do they go from there? But I think the bottom line is, again, the Steelers, this whole quarterback situation this year is a rental. Like whatever happens this year, this is not like Aaron Rodgers is not coming to the Steelers to reshape the offense in his image and make it so that he's the leader moving forward that passes down, whatever he teaches to the next franchise guy. I'm not even sure if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign a 2-year deal with the Steelers. They might be looking at, hey, 1-year deal situation, and we'll deal with that because they have Mason Rudolph signed for 2 years. And I think what the Steelers might actually be planning to do right now is they might be planning to get their quarterback next year, but they also, I think, might be planning to get a quarterback this year in the draft, even though I'm telling you, I don't think this is the quarterback draft year. I don't think this is the year to go try to get your starter, your franchise guy. But I do think this is the year that you could go get a future backup, a guy that can be a depth quarterback for you for the long run, kind of the way Mason Rudolph has been for the past several years. And that could still have value as you move forward. And that's something I think the Steelers will end up doing. And I want to talk about who their options are. And I actually did my first quarterback rankings of this class in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette as part of a Sunday feature. And I'm going to go over those rankings with you and why I think the primary plan for the Steelers at quarterback in this draft class is to find the backup that maybe they can develop into a starter, or maybe is just the next Mason Rudolph for the next years, helping with bridges and helping in pinches moving forward, a guy that they can have for cheap for the next 4 years on a rookie contract.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can check out some NBA lines like the battle in Brooklyn tonight. The Nets and the Mavericks face off. Okay, not the best game, but come on, it's sports. According to FanDuel, Dallas 1-point road favorite in this one. No Luka, no Kyrie. But yeah, yikes. FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
Oh my God, the Nuggets won a game without Jokic. It's a miracle. It couldn't have ever happened. Oh wait, they've done it twice in a week.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
Can I ask you, I want to start there, Ryan.
Sure.
Why is it that when the Nuggets lose a game against a team that we know that they're better than, the reaction is so much greater than when they beat a team like the Warriors, who had been red hot, and they beat a team like the Rockets, who had won 9 in a row coming into this game?
You think the reaction was stronger?
Yes.
For the Blazers loss? Okay.
Yes.
I think it's probably because Nuggets fans they're pretty accustomed to winning at this point. They've won a lot. The Nuggets have won a lot of games over the course of these last few years. They're one of the winningest teams. They might be, Matt, the winningest team in the Western Conference over the course of the Nikola Jokic, not era, but like certainly the 2020s. They've been great. And the fact that they have been that consistent and been that good again, and they've done it really well against sub 500 teams, honestly. So when you don't have that, and when it feels like the ground is kind of falling out from under your feet, and you had just lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in pretty embarrassing fashion the game before, then yeah, people are going to throw up their hands and be like, okay, can't even beat the Portland Trailblazers. How are you going to beat any team in the Western Conference playoff picture? And then they go ahead and beat the Houston Rockets, who are really good.
By the way, you are correct. The Denver Nuggets in the 2020s, since 2019-20, have the most wins in the Western Conference with 296. That is a full 19 ahead of the Phoenix Suns, who are second. Clippers next up at 272.
God, that Suns total is going to drop off shortly.
Probably. Nuggets get the win 116-111 versus the Houston Rockets. Jamal Murray. Ooh.
Killer.
Man. Just 39 points, 15 of 28, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. 1 turnover, a plus 19. I've been talking a lot about how Jamal's been playing really good basketball basically since the turn of the year. And this was another one where he was just absolutely sensational and took it to Man Thompson. Took it to him. He beat everybody on that Rockets team. Off-balance shots, in-control floaters, tough finishes on the interior through contact falling down. Jamal was spectacular in this game.
He was hunting Dylan Brooks too. How often do you see that, Matt? So people are seeking out Dylan Brooks on the other end, trying to attack them. And Jamal just felt very comfortable throughout this game. And the turnover that he had, pretty ugly at the end. It nearly got them in trouble. But if that's the one blemish on what was a fantastic game, that was a truly, truly impressive performance. And it came at such a big moment because, like we talked about, momentum's not going Denver's way. You're facing off against a top 5 defense. This team is really good, this Houston Rockets team. They had won 9 in a row. Where are you going to look to without Nikola Jokic? You look to your leaders. And Jamal Murray is certainly one of those guys, and he has consistently stepped up, especially after about December 8th, when they lost to the Washington Wizards. He has been tremendous ever since then and deserves a ton of credit for shouldering a lot of the burden. I thought against the Portland Trailblazers, he was pretty hampered. Certainly looked that way. That's not the only excuse that you can give. He just kind of played bad and was kind of passive. This one, he wasn't about to be passive. He was very aggressive and played a great game.
I can't believe the stat, but it's true. This season without Nikola Jokic, when the Nuggets are favored, so they're supposed to win the game even without Jokic, they're 0-3. They have not won a game when they are supposed to win the game without Jokic.
That's probably why the people are so negative.
But now, in games in which Jokic does not play and they are underdogs, so they're not supposed to win, the Nuggets are 4-3. They're above 500.
Wow.
Versus teams they're not supposed to beat when Jokic doesn't play.
Sure. Yeah. You know what? That's normal. That's what this team is supposed to be. That's just every time we try to get a handle on what this group is and what they're capable of, they tend to go the opposite direction, Matt. And Jamal, I think, is actually very enigmatic of that exact trait and has been throughout his career. And you've said this before. The moment you feel like you get a handle on it, the moment you feel like you know what you're going to expect from him, he goes the opposite direction. When you write him off, he writes back, and it was pretty impressive tonight.
Yeah, he was absolutely phenomenal. He was terrific. I think and I'm just glad that we can, for now, put aside the stuff from the early this season. He wasn't right. He got right. He's looking great. And he was gassed tonight and still managed to burn off clock and get the foul draw at the end, which essentially secured that game because it got dicey there at the end. I'm not surprised. They just got a little rushed at the end, and the pressure from the Rockets is really good. This is a wild offensive game. The Nuggets won this game with offense, which is again surprising. I want to up next. I would like to talk about how we need to put some respect on the professional basketball players that play basketball for the Denver Nuggets who do not have the name Jokic on the back of their jersey.